Gio and I are here with Eyal Lasker, who's the co-founder and CEO at FlexSpace and has a pretty deep tech background. We were just about to dive into his background, and Gio yelled at me and said I needed to hit record. So, Eyal is in New York City. He used to live in San Francisco, but moved last year. Thank you for joining us. I would like to note that I asked Christmas to be on the podcast a long time ago, and she was dodging me for some reason. So I was like, Gio, you have to get them on the podcast. She's like, I'm on it. Gio always
And she said, if I don't get a yell on first, then I'm going to get yelled at. So,
okay.
Which is completely not true. And we need to address that with Christmas. But yeah.
Tell her how it is. We can have her on too. Anyway, I'm really excited to hear your background and to talk about what you're doing because it's really innovative and pulls from the hospitality space, which is really an evolution that our industry is going through. So, okay. Gio, do you want to kick us off?
yeah. So, I mean, we've obviously seen Christmas run around with her big old smile the last year and a half, 2 years at these events, and, all kinds of opportunities come up. So, I mean, I would just love to hear what it is that you, first of all, what's your background? How did you get into the business? You were already sharing a little bit of that with us. You've moved to New York recently, which is anti everyone else apparently that's moved out of New York. So would love to just kind of hear what your background is.
Yeah, so I just said, right, the first job out of college was actually as a hedge fund trader, which is very different from what we're doing today. But, now that we talked about that, I remembered, and that's really how I got into technology eventually, is that I was sitting there, right, in this like skyscraper for like working for a hedge fund company, very depressed with like the whole settings, usually trying to find someone to go to grab lunch with, which was always a challenge. And that's where I came up with the magnificent idea that I should build an app that will be called Anyone. And the sole purpose of the app will be to ask anyone for lunch and just have a companion to go and grab some food with. That led me into this rabbit hole of start coding and doing all different stuff. I eventually was able to build a very basic cranky app. And I think that was probably my first kind of step into the tech world soon enough. So I realized that I'm done with trading. I was just like at a very, I don't know, soul like it was just like hurting my soul at some point, just every day trying to optimize the bottom line. And yeah, eventually from that led me to an awesome company. I started working there as in a product role. That was Klarna. I don't know if you are familiar with them, buy now, pay later. So being there, moved to the Valley at some point for a startup that was then acquired by Uber. From there to WeWork, 2018. It really was part of building the tech center in San Francisco for WeWork, with the kind of mission to Uberize space and think about on demand and how, we can really make space available. From there, it was kind of pretty natural for me and my co-founder, Justin, which I met at WeWork, to go and start FlexSpace.
Wow. So another WeWork alumni.
I know, but you're such a good example. I mean, your resume is pretty, impressive in the tech world. And, you went to WeWork. It was compelling to you. It's really amazing the talent they attracted, kind of during their heyday.
Yeah. And I don't remember who I met recently. And he was like, oh, yeah, it's funny. It's like when you talk with people that, ex-WeWork employees, because they are asking me about my experience and what do they think and all that, right? With all the headlines that are coming up recently. I don't know, man. As an employee at the company and definitely being part of the tech org, as you said, amazing people, amazing talent, we built cool stuff. And yeah, it was enjoyable until it wasn't.
How long were you there?
So all in all, I think less than 2 years.
Okay.
or maybe a bit more. I actually, it's like already like
Your LinkedIn says
brain
2
sport.
years, 7 months.
Yeah, there you go. So
There you go. Yeah.
that's the answer.
Okay, so you said, it's just pretty natural that I would leave WeWork and, start FlexSpace. I mean, maybe. So I guess you'd sort of built your own app early on, but then worked for others. So this was kind of re-entering, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Tell us about that process and then walk us through what does FlexSpace do? What problem does it solve?
Yeah. So okay, so that was 2019. It felt like year, right? And then I was asked to move. So SoftBank came in and was more, took more control of the company. I was asked to move to Tokyo, which I did around November 2019. Yeah. So
Wow.
Japan, wow, right? That's an awesome Tokyo specifically. But so because WeWork Japan was a joint venture between SoftBank and WeWork, Masayoshi then wanted I had this big vision how I was going to turn around WeWork. I was asked to move there, which I did and stay there pretty much until I was like, either I'm taking the flight out back to San Francisco because of some like world pandemic people are saying, or I'm going to be stuck here for who knows how long. Right. Yeah. So just came back, crazy times. And a few months after, you know, the world was distributed and before COVID for sure, but kind of took a good look into the future, and we thought that and that connects to work as well, right? I don't think any one operator can really get to the scale needed in order to service the workforce that we are evolving into, right? It's just, the workforce is so much more distributed. People want more options, right? No one wants to buy the DVD anymore. Everyone wants Netflix. So there just cannot be just one solution, right? There's need to be a variety of options. And that was the really first thing that we were curious about, right? How do you build a network, but like a robust, true network that can connect to different demand channels? And that's what we set out to do.
And so what does your team look like as of today? How do you find opportunities? What's the business development track look like for you?
So, we have good traction. Our focus is to power the co-working operators. We're growing the outside of the business. We power more and more locations with our e-commerce revenue platform. So the way that works is that we connect to co-working operators' website. Then from there, we take on the whole heavy lifting of just making space available and easy to transact. And on one hand, improve kind of the user experience or the customer experience, make it easy to search and book the space they need. On the other side, help their operators to monetize on their perishable inventory or unused space.
That's Giovanni choking on mute.
No,
Jamie,
yeah, I was looking at the website. I was like, okay, but part of like the one really, so you're a booking engine, but not a marketplace.
Okay, so
For the listener who has no idea what you do, walk us through it.
So we are, our main goal really is to make it easy for people to find and transact with the space they want to work from. Okay. There's different phases of the company and what we are building that we're going through, right? So one is direct. Just make it easy for people when I go on a website of any of my preferred co-working providers to book the space that I need, whether it's like a meeting room for a few hours or a day pass or even buy a membership, right? There's no reason why all of this should not be available online and easy to use. So that's the phase one of our work. And we want to get to as many operators and to help them sell and make those spaces available for anyone. The second piece of it is the marketplace component that, the more operators we have on our platform, or the more operators that are using our e-commerce platform, then the more robust our marketplace becomes.
Okay, so why would I not just have people book, I use Office R&D for billing. Why would I not have them book and pay through that platform? Why am I introducing FlexSpace?
Yeah. So, Oxfam, Nexus, Yardi, all those companies, right, which are great with providing a workspace management platform or a property management platform. They are doing that, right? And that's where they focus on. Our area of focus is on the direct, like on the consumer side, right? And to power the transaction, make it easy to have just a streamlined way to book a space. That's our focus area. We introduced alongside with that other features that we bring from the, as you mentioned, from the hospitality world. So we recently launched dynamic pricing, which helps operators to optimize their revenue. As we all know, prices are not static. If you think about when you go to book a hotel room, or when you want to book a flight, there's no reason that prices will be, static in our industry, right? Some days can be lower, some hours of the day can have a surge or a peak. So prices need to change to accommodate and to best serve supply and demand.
See, this is what I love about brilliant minds is they can explain stuff and people like me don't always understand it. But here's a really good explanation for it. And y'all just gave a great one, but this was actually on Business Wire when y'all announced your $6 million seed, y'all. So FlexSpace provides the infrastructure to search, price, book, and process services in real time to hybrid remote companies and flexible space operators. The platform sits at the intersection of co-working space, supply and demand. And flex space real estate owners and operators can be discovered by companies so they can monetize unused inventory. So, I mean, that's the awesome part about it is we're seeing more and more of this, right? And we've talked about how is there more ways for these operators to lease up space, right? I mean, so often people would compare the industry to hotels, but the difference is hotels have the Bonvoy, the IHG, the Priceline. They've got all these different channels in order to book space. And I think, having a marketplace like you guys offer is a big component of that, right?
Wait, I'm
So I
still
was saying,
is
yeah.
there what's the discovery piece of it? Like I'm looking like at the Yard website and I totally see how the transaction piece is really, nice. I love the dynamic pricing. I don't understand the discovery piece though, or the marketplace piece.
So if you go on FlexSpace right now, right, and you click on book a space, then you get access to all the wonderful spaces that are part of our network, and you
Nice.
can go ahead and book that. What is different though in our strategy and the way that we approach this problem is to first power the direct channel. So meaning that first help operators to monetize the traffic that actually
They're getting.
comes to their website, right? That they're getting, right? So no longer you need to pick up the phone or fill up a form or send an email. Just, remove the barriers for someone to book your space, right? Because they want to come from work from there. I can tell you that when we look at our data, 50% or almost 50% of the bookings are happening either same day or during the weekends, right? So you need to have a way to serve your customers and their preferences.
Got
Yeah.
it.
And so I'll give you a great example is I remember when WeWork, and you might have had something to do with this, when WeWork, you couldn't show up and just book to get a day pass, right? And that's actually, I'm working at a WeWork today, and literally I booked it an hour before the podcast when I showed up. And so the ability to do that is huge, right? The ability to show up, and you couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are like so accustomed to consume, services on demand, right? The Uber, like the car, there's so many examples, like, food delivery. So, there's no reason in the world why I cannot find and book the space where and when I need it.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually make the transaction. And I mean, your interface is very clean, and this must be Stripe. Like, it popped up my credit card. I don't have to create an account. I'm just buying and I'm coming, and that's it. Yeah.
Exactly that, right? So we put a lot of emphasis on the conversion rates,
Yeah.
right? So we want to get as many people as possible from a website visitor into a buyer,
Yeah.
right?
Low
So that's something
barrier,
that
no
we,
friction. Yeah. Don't make me make an account on. Wait, we won't. I hear you. Yep.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it's really, I mean, I just looked at WorkWise and the Yard, and they're both, yeah, same interface, looks really nice and smooth. Okay, so again, for people who I understand the dynamic pricing because I've probably seen Christmas walk through it, or can you just, I mean, a lot of operators will not have been exposed to the fact that this exists in our industry. Can you talk about like how that works in the hotel industry, and just go into a little bit more detail on how you're applying it to the co-working industry? And maybe even like, what does it look like, down the road? Because I'm guessing that's one of those things that you see eventually being, a much bigger play.
yeah, for sure. So, when we looked at like what impacts pricing, right? So there's seasonality. There are things that are happening in your market, right, or around you. There are prices like when you look at your competitors and what does that tell you, and then you have your own, proprietary data of what's my occupancy rate, right, and how traffic is looking in my location throughout the week and every day throughout the different hours of. So we compile all of that, right? And we look into all this data, and eventually, through technology, we can recommend or advise what should be the right price, right? So that's what I mean dynamic pricing. So for example, if you have, lower traffic on Mondays and Fridays, so perhaps if you will lower the price for those day passes, you will be able eventually to create more bookings than if you just keep the price static. Same goes when you have high traffic, right? Maybe there's an opportunity to charge more because the space is more occupied, right? So these changes, right, can eventually create an uplift of revenue, and that is solely through technology without needing to invest, more money into real estate or hiring more people. That is just like letting technology find the perfect match between what you have and the need that the people around you are looking for.
All right. So first personal question, or it's not personal, it's business, but it is a bit personal. So I always find it so interesting how people connect, right? And how I mean, like Jamie and I is a great example, is just how our relationship grew and how it's continued to evolve as we have different personalities, everything else. So talk about your relationship with Justin. I mean, obviously picking a partner for a business like this is huge, right? There's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of trust and everything else. So kind of, how did y'all meet? How did y'all connect? How did your relationship kind of get to the point where you decided to start something together?
Yeah, it's a great question. Probably to this date, my longest relation, but I did just got married like months ago. So, there's still way to go. But so Justin and I met at WeWork. So I joined WeWork before Justin, and I looked for a counterpart. So I came from the product world and I looked for a counterpart on the engineering side of things. So, talked to different people, eventually got introduced to Justin. Honestly, it was like kind of, we clicked and we were able to really find like a common ground and the language very, very quickly. With that, so we started working together. We were able to build the teams and scale products, and we really enjoyed working together. Like that was like I've been throughout my career. I worked with different engineering managers from different types and shapes, and we just really had a very cool way to think about product and product development and what's important and how to prioritize and to really put their emphasis on the user, at the end user, right? Really have the empathy and think about what eventually what we build needs to serve someone. It's not about, just building technology for the sake of the technology. And that's something, that throughout my career, I really enjoy the intersection between technology and people and building products that can just make life better. So with that, for us, it was very clear that, although the newer journey ended, we want to keep on, just creating and building stuff together. So it was very, very, quick and easy decision to say, hey, let's just talk and let's continue working together.
And what's his background?
So Justin comes from engineering. He's, been in engineering for his entire career, both from like startups, mostly in the crypto world, to educational products like Brightbytes that was acquired by Google. So yeah, and I guess we also like another piece that we really connected is we both like, how should I put that? Like just endurance. So Justin is like, can run a marathon. Like it's like if I think about going out and doing a 10K, probably run a marathon. It's like did like a lot of those triple marathons in the mountains. And then I enjoy that side sort of like a different aspect, more of like, long runs or cycling, things like that. So this just another cool thing that we can do together.
So y'all love pain, right? You're glutton for punishment is what you.
That was what I was getting at.
Yeah. It's funny. We actually just went live with our podcast with Kane, and Kane decided that in the middle of the pandemic that he did not only needed to sweat every day, but he needed to beat himself up significantly. So he started doing Ironmans.
Ironman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not there yet, but maybe hopefully not. Maybe I can stop at some point. But I know, yeah, I had a chance to chat with Kane about, business, but also that it's awesome.
Yeah. So what does your typical workout look like?
So I try to do the running, cycling, swimming, and like keep
Okay.
that cycle going. Yeah. So that's basically my routine, and it's good. I truly enjoy that. I mean, I feel this is my meditation. This is where I just kind of unwind and just have time to think and eventually probably get the most and best ideas coming out of that.
So what does the future look like for the company, right? Kind of what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Kind of what are the next benchmarks for you?
Yeah, so there are really interesting stuff that are in the pipeline. Obviously, we want to expand and grow the network and connect with as many co-working operators that can, take advantage and use our product. We are, keep investing in building a very robust dynamic pricing engine. We think there's a lot to be built and to achieve in that aspect. And then once that is all said and done, there's really interesting opportunities to to open and connect the supply and the market to, FlexSpace. We are a marketplace, but as you mentioned, right, we believe, right, that there's need to be strong demand channels that can drive people into the space, and there's a lot to be done there. It's really just the beginning.
Say more.
Okay, so let's think about, and you gave the example from the travel industry, right? We believe, right, that eventually our industry, right, the coworking industry will become very similar to the models that we know from travel and hospitality, right? So you have the operators, then you have a layer of connectivity, if it's like Saver or Amadeus or like the global distribution channels, all of that, right? That then are able to serve businesses like the online travel agents that we know, right? Expedia and Booking.com and all right? So that's on the consumer side. And then you also have like the inside of corporate travel, which is companies like Compare and Navan and others, right? So when we look at the overall kind of ecosystem, that's where we believe co-working flexible space will evolve into. And we are at the very, very, early stage of that transition.
And so, as part of your future growth, I mean, are you all actively raising capital? What's the future of that look like?
Yeah, so obviously in our world, capital or venture capital is part of of how we operate. So that's coming for sure, and yeah, that's part of the nature of being a startup.
So I'm curious about the interest from venture. Is that exclusive to the co-working industry? I mean, it's not in terms of number of operators, it's not a huge addressable market on that side. You have to believe that demand is going to continue to grow. Does that come from, remote work? Where does that come from? People give it like where does that come from? Like what is it that everybody believes to get venture funding?
Yeah, so market-wise, right, if we look at the corporate world and enterprise companies and workforce in general, there's more demand to flexible work environments for companies, right, coming directly from the corporate world. So there's, a transition happening there. Again, we are not in the office, or the traditional office will keep on living, but we are seeing how eventually every company will have their portfolio, right, or their workforce coming and consuming flexible work environments.
So, how big is your team? I mean, I mean, obviously, we see Christmas at all the events. Obviously, super active. I mean, how much work is being behind the scenes on all these?
Yeah. So our team is 20 people, which is between engineering, product design, and go to market, which is sales and marketing. Myself and Justin. That's the team.
And another question I've got, and Jamie uses this to a certain extent, so I'd love to understand how do you use AI, Chat GPT? What do you see that being in the future of the industry as a whole, but also that's the future of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we are leveraging AI internally, mostly on the pricing side of our engine. Eventually, we do want to expose more of it also outwards facing towards our customers and users. And I think that's, eventually AI, right? It's just a good way to save time on tasks that or otherwise can just take too much hassle and too much workforce. where and when it's needed, right? I don't think that it's, it's an answer to all of our problems, but there are aspects of it that it can really be helpful. And the more like the models are getting better, the more we can get out of it. Well, I think it's like, there's still a long way to go. And, as much as I use ChatGPT on a daily basis, I mean, it's more like an advisor than it's not replacing anything, right? But definitely something that I can use. If I used to go more to Google and search things, now I might have a, more advanced way and a quicker way to get answers to the questions that I might have. Still, I cannot rely on it for like 100%.
You totally
All
cannot.
right.
Give me some bad information earlier this week about how to get your CMRA form completed. I sent it to William, and William was like, "That's total crap." I was like, "William, I don't," and it referenced iWorkspace Mail, as a matter of fact, and it was still totally wrong. But your algorithm must use some. You may have said this, like some AI, in order to pull, sort of,
Yeah.
yeah, for the dynamic pricing. Sorry. Need
Yeah.
that with your
So
copy.
we have some component of it in our, that, we use internally in our data analysis, but yeah, there's definitely room to grow there and make it more robust and sophisticated as we go along.
Speaking of room to grow, so you said you just recently got married. So what was that ceremony like?
Indeed, yeah. So beautiful, and yeah, really enjoyed that. We travel. So I'm Israeli, by like born and raised in Israel. So we traveled. My wife also Israeli. We traveled back to Tel Aviv. We had the ceremony there. Friends and family. Just had a very good time. Weather was kind enough to be awesome. So just perfect. And it was on a Friday. We started kind of around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, kept that going until late night, big party. It was awesome.
And what's her name?
My wife,
Yes.
Maya.
Okay. And how did y'all meet?
Oh, now we got the blunt.
That's a good one. Through a mutual friend. Mutual friend introduced our guy, connected us. And yeah, we went on a date. You know, the only thing I know that there was a second date. There's like mixed stories around how the first date, right? But we got to the
Somehow
second
you
date.
got to the second one. Okay.
Yes, and from there it was like, everything went smoothly.
Did you
And
meet?
what do you love the most about Maya?
Well, she makes me laugh. She's super funny, and I love all of that about her. That's probably the first thing, and it just like, she's just like, it's hard to say, right? When it's the right person for you, really. I mean, I heard that for so many years, but eventually, when it happened, and it just luckily, it happened to me.
I
That's
always
great.
I always tell my daughter to marry somebody funny, because I think, I think there's research around that too. It's like respect and laughter. If you have that in a marriage, then you're in good shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll work. You'll need some laughter along the way.
And what does she do for work?
She's a fashion designer. So she's a fashion designer and styling. So yeah, that's kind of where New York also makes sense for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have super stylish kids.
We'll see. I don't know if I'm very stylish, but yeah.
Hey, and don't knock it, right? Black is very stylish. It goes with anything.
Black t-shirts, especially. Totally.
Yes. Keeping it simple.
And as far as your reach, we're switching back to business. I mean, are you global? Are you North America? Kind of what's your reach right now?
Yeah, totally. Focus on North America. That's really our focus area. We do have operators outside, but kind of more being inbound than us doing anything actively there. And we are thinking about going outside of North America. Probably Europe will be next for us. No plans or concrete plans yet, but definitely something that we're keeping an eye on.
And what about Asia? Is such a big market that I always forget how big of a market Asia is when it comes to our industry, right? And sometimes I forget not only that it's that big, but it's so far ahead of where we are in the US, right? I mean, I think that's another part about it.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I think there's many different concepts also are coming from Asia and new ways to thinking about timeshare and different ways to pay and to transact. We are looking into that, but for us, focus is one of the things that you must have. So we're just trying to really narrow down and focus on the things that we need to deliver and work on right now to serve our customers and also build the network. From there, global expansion will come.
Yeah, and I mean that's one thing that entrepreneurs don't have very often, right? Is clear focus. They see shiny objects everywhere and chase stuff everywhere. So it's always interesting just to have those conversations. Along those lines, so obviously you moved for SoftBank while we worked to try to figure all that out and really understood those dynamics in a different way from an internal standpoint. What's your take on this Yardi takeover or step in of WeWork? Do you have a take on it? I mean, you think it's good, bad, indifferent?
Yeah, so what I'm wanting to know, right? I don't have any inside information or intel.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? I think that it can be as not interesting or as, very much interesting. I don't know where, the truth kind of lie there just because, yes, there can be a lot of opportunities when the company like Yardi comes in and take on, WeWork as the operator. So just thinking about opportunities there and future work and how those things can connect, I think it can be creating a lot of interesting possibilities. Or it can just be a very financial transaction and there's not much more to it. So I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays out as we get to know more information as to what that step in is. And I think there's a lot of people that are reading into what it's going to do to the industry and everything else. So
I do
I'm
think,
eager to find out.
it's, I mean, we can introduce them. Maybe it's a problem, maybe not. But the fact that the RD is also powering other, co-working operators, right? And in some aspect, it might be or might not be a competitor. There can be some, concerns there, although it can also be very separate operations, right? With your data is not going from one side to the other. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, to me, it's because we don't know, then it's very
Yeah.
hard to comment on.
Okay. I think our time is up. So my final question, I don't know
Yes.
how karaoke fits into the Israeli culture, but what's your go-to karaoke song?
Wow. Good one. Wow. I need to think about it. I thought it was just like I will have the answer, but I don't know. Good one. I need to,
Okay,
I
what do
need
you
to
what do you
figure it
sing in the shower? Gotta try
out.
another angle.
Yes. No, you're right. Go with something, and the only thing that comes to mind right now is probably some Jay-Z, I don't know,
Okay.
one of those, what? Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Well, Jay-Z, I like it. Very New York. Very New York. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to do this. It was great to meet you. So we've
Great to meet
gotten
you.
to see Christmas, and we're thrilled that your team is coming to conferences, getting to know the operators, talking about the model. I mean, it's innovative what you're doing, and it's important for everybody to know what you're up to. So we appreciate getting to see you in real life and for you taking the time to do this today.
It was great meeting you, and hope to see you soon. I mean, when is the next conference coming in September?
Yeah. So September is
Arizona.
Phoenix. And then we'll be in your backyard in December for GWA Immersive. I think the second week.
Doing two immersives? I thought we were going to Mexico.
Mexico's in February.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be a good excuse for people to get there once the Christmas decorations are up. So
Nice.
hopefully,
Around the holidays. So good.
yeah. So hopefully we'll see you in Phoenix. And thanks again for your time and thank you for everything you're doing for the industry. I know there's a lot of people that are benefiting from what you're doing.
Great. Thanks, guys.